what I focus on is our niche. What are we good at? Mm-hmm. What makes us stand out from our competitors?
Just a quick reminder for you to like, subscribe, and rate this podcast so we can get your feedback and know how to make it better.
Hey, it's Ari. Welcome to another episode of the Made in America podcast. Today, I'm with Dave Marcil from Reno Machine. Dave, thanks so much for coming on today.
Well, thanks for having me. Thank you.
It's my pleasure, Dave. It's the Made in America podcast, though, my friend. So we start off with the same two questions. What do you make, and why do you make it?
I knew that was coming.
I certainly hope so.
Well, what we do and what we make is we specialize in large format 5-axis gantry machining, among other things, but that's really our forte. And we make that because there's a need in this area for those services, which there are not too many companies in this area that have the capabilities, capacity-wise, like Reno does.
Like Reno does. So just for anyone that doesn't know, what is large format gantry?
5-axis.
5-axis.
So it is a large CNC milling machine that instead of just a 3-axis X, Y, and Z, also can articulate and do multiple axes, right? And basically reduce setup times.
And
basically one and done.
But what's unique about the large format that makes it so special?
There's not too many companies in the Northeast that have these capabilities. A lot of companies have 5-axis machining, but not the types of travels that we have.
So what do you make on this large format machine? Like what comes out of that that's different than what other people might make on their smaller machines?
Well, we do quite a bit, actually. We do a lot of composite machining.
Okay.
We do quite a bit of machining for Sikorsky on their rotor blades, both tail and main rotor blades for several different aircraft that they manufacture. We do composite molds and composite tooling. We do rig work and test hardware for several aerospace companies, Sikorsky, Pratt & Whitney. Currently, we're involved in heat exchangers for Collins Aerospace for their customers. And it's just very versatile, a lot less handling. You can strap things down on the machine, and the one and done mentality is where it's at.
Where it's at. There you go. Yeah. So I'd love to get into at some point like kind of that specialization and how that's been a benefit to Reno. And you mentioned not a lot of people do it, so I really want to dig into that. But before we get there, sort of let's go back to the beginning to get to the end. So just like give some background. What's sort of the origin story for Reno Machine? So
Reno started with two gentlemen. One of the original owners was the father of the current ownership now, along with his father-in-law.
Okay.
His brother-in-law. They started in the late 50s in a garage.
Okay.
Yeah, they started in a garage fixing cars, and they had a brake lathe. And so the story goes, someone came in with a part that they needed turned. It was an aerospace part, and they wanted to see if they could do it on this brake lathe. Usually they use for turning drums for car brakes, and they were successful. And so more work started coming their way, and they bought a real lathe, and it kind of took off from there. That piece of equipment is actually still on the shop floor.
No kidding.
Now, yeah.
Yeah, just sort of keeping the old history alive. Remember from where we came from. Probably not making Sikorsky blades on that machine.
No, not on that one. Definitely not.
Definitely not. So from the sort of humble beginnings, what does sort of Reno look like now? You guys are in Newington?
We're in Newington. Yeah, just off the Berlin Turnpike. We've got a 85,000 square foot facility. We've got about 55 people currently right now. We're growing. We're adding people. We're adding equipment. We're adding infrastructure. There's a ton of opportunity. There's been a really good bounce back since COVID, and things are going well. It's the future's bright. The future's strong. 5-axis machining is kind of, like I said, our niche, and
Demand is high.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great. So let's talk a little bit about you, Dave. What kind of drove you into manufacturing? How long you been kind of doing this gig?
I've been doing this now for 43 years. I kind of fell into it. I started back in high school. From there, I went to trade school, started working with shop teachers at night after trade school, and just kind of took off from there.
Well, when you said you started in high school. So give me that kind of concept. So you didn't grow up in a manufacturing family. So it wasn't sort of like that. You just kind of fell into it in high school.
Yeah, I fell into it in high school. My dad ran a big machine shop a big sheet metal shop up in Springfield, Mass.
Okay.
And so I came from
So you sort of did see it.
manufacturing background. My dad was a tin knocker. I wasn't feeling that. But, I was into all kinds of things, snowmobiles and motorcycles, and you need to fix stuff. You need to make stuff. You just make it.
And so I always think about, we always talk about how do we get kids today excited about getting into the industry, right? And there are fewer and fewer kids who see their parent, whether it be a tin knocker or a machinist or whatever, right? Just the way that manufacturing has gone, there just aren't as many people around. And you sort of came to it a little bit through that, but it sounds like also a little bit through sort of tinkering with equipment you were using.
Yeah, things that I like to do as a hobby, things that I learned, basically through my dad growing up. We had a shop at our house, make all kinds of stuff, all kinds of equipment, fix the things that we broke when we were playing on the weekends. And it kind of took off from there. And I got into machine shop in high school, was good at it. It was interesting, and I stayed with it.
So, and where'd you go after high school? Like to what they would call sort of the C-Tech system now, like that system?
It was something a little bit different. This was up in Western Mass. I think it's still there. It's a collaborative of trade schools, and it was the schools in the area that had the best of, the automotive, wood shop, tech drawing, machine shop, things like that. And so I ended up going half days to a different school in Agawam, did blueprint reading and tech drawing in East Longmeadow for, 5-6 months, something like that. And then started working in a shop at night.
No kidding.
Yeah.
It's sort of like the stuff they're talking about now is right. Is sort of get the kids that are interested, get them sort of skilled up a little bit, get them doing sort of a little bit of work study. Yep. It's like what is old is now new again, apparently. Because that sounds like you went through the process we're trying to reinvigorate now. Yeah,
I did, and that's why we're helping to grow Reno, right, and helping with that effort. Basically the same way, and reach out to kids, have them come through, and I kind of relay my story. Because I came up basically the same way, and go out on a field trip and see industry firsthand. It's like, okay, this is why they're teaching us what they're teaching us, because they're using it, and this is how it
works.
Yeah.
So are you out there talking to kids now? You said you're like kind of helping to drive that. What does that look like?
I've been working with our VP of Ops, who is actually the son of one of the owners. Yeah. And he's got some initiatives to really grow the business, like a lot of companies in the area do. Yeah. And it's through the trade schools. And so, we're talking to them. We're bringing them in. We've got some programs where we're trying to identify some people who would be good fits.
And so how do you do that? Like, when you talking to someone, or you guys think about what might kind of be good, because obviously they're not going to be super well trained. So you're looking for some type of core, I don't know, you tell me, like what is that thing or those things that you're looking for?
We're looking for the basics. Do you have a good, have you done some theory? Have you done some hands-on? Are you technical? Do you understand the basics of metal removal? Is this a career that you're interested in? And do you think there's a future in it? We can show you possibilities, right?
Right.
Yeah. And we're looking for people that are technical. If somebody likes working on cars or working on bikes or something like that, usually they're a good fit.
Yeah, is that getting harder and harder to find? I wonder. Like, I mean, listen, I am not I'm not a gearhead in terms of like I just never really did that. I went the computer route, sort of. But I did used to open computers and all that. But even I can tell you, just looking at over the years, right? My first car was an Oldsmobile Cutlass Cruiser station wagon, right? And
Nice.
right, so right, and I've come a long way from that, and I can tell, and I've looked inside the engine, under the hood of every car I've had from there through Audis, BMWs, Dodges, whatever, and I steadily over the years have seen when you open up the hood, you can see less and less and less of the engine, right? It's just
plastic covers.
more plastic covers and like a lot more stuff in there, and it's a lot more like computerized. Is it harder to find kids who have that sort of same tinkering background that you had?
I think it's coming back. For a long time, that kind of went away. Trade school focus seemed to kind of go away. I think it's coming back because there's a lot more focus and there's a lot more initiatives, like the programs that the state has, the programs that the schools, the technical schools have. It seems to be coming back, and people are, you got to find the people that are into that, right? Not everybody's cut out to go to college.
No.
So if they're not going to go there, what are you going to do? You're going to need a skill. You're going to need a trade. You're always going to need stuff made, right? So you're always going to need people to make it.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah. And I guess going back to your comment before, if that core is there, if you're, I think you either are or you aren't like a tinkerer at heart, right?
Exactly.
And if you are, right? I guess that's where it's at. We just got to find them and put them in the right spot.
Yeah. Yep.
So once you sort of got started in, you're now kind of in leadership in manufacturing. I assume you didn't start there. So what was your first gig?
Definitely not. I started working in a small shop right across the street from Riverside Park up in Agawam, and worked there nights.
Riverside Park. I don't know if everyone.
I'm dating myself.
Yeah.
That'd be Six Flags now.
I was going to say, no one knows what we're talking about. I remember Riverside too.
But then, I stayed in Western Mass until the mid 80s, and I relocated down here.
Got it.
And I came down into this area, and there was a lot more opportunity, a lot more opportunity to advance my career. And I moved around some shops down here, kind of just worked my way up through the ranks, old school, just gritted it out.
Yeah.
Paid my dues, worked my way up. And I was always the type that once you got proficient at something, I need a new challenge, like what's next? And so I kind of worked into that, and eventually it became a managerial role, running a CNC department. Did that for 10 years before I kind of fell into technical sales. And the sales side was easy, being with a technical background, speaking with engineers, with procurement people. It was
second nature.
Yeah, it was easy.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Because I bet you a lot of people look at that and go, that's hard. But I'm going to ask you, so let's go back, because I think there's something here, hopefully, part of what we're doing on this podcast, trying to reach folks that are like in the industry or want to get in the industry and sort of show them a way. And you talked about something that you breezed over, but a lot of people I think get sort of stuck on and don't know how to move past, which is how to sort of grow their career the right way, which is sort of you just said it, get proficient at something and then say what's next. So how did, maybe talk through sort of that thought process of what does that mean to you to get proficient, and how did you go to ask for what's next?
I'm the type of person who always likes a challenge. If I'm not challenged, I start getting a little complacent and bored. So I need to be challenged. That's kind of my sweet spot. Maybe that's not for everybody. Some people find their niche or their kind of lane, and they're happy to stay in that lane. I like to change lanes.
You like to change lanes a little bit. Yeah. So when you're working on something new, you're excited.
Yeah.
How do you know when you've gotten to the point where you've mastered it and it's time to move on? Like what triggers you there?
Just time. You put your time in. Once you, and I'm not sure you really ever master it, but you become proficient. Right? Yeah. When you become proficient to the point where it's no longer a challenge, right? It's like, okay, all right, we're just going along.
Yeah.
What's next? And really, I think if I always made management aware that, if there was an opportunity to get ahead, that might be something I'd be interested in.
So how'd you do that?
Basically, when I would start somewhere, one of the questions I would ask is, what's the room for advancement? Right? Walking in the door, announce your intentions. This is great. Where can we go after this? What's the potential?
And then once you feel like you're proficient, you're back saying, hey, I think I'm ready for the next thing.
Exactly.
And you seems like you got an opportunity most of the times you ask for something.
Yeah. Or you just, you're in the right place at the right time, and people know that in the back of their head. Hey, this guy's raising his hand. Maybe we give him a shot. Yeah.
And how did you know, what made you think, I feel like I'm ready to lead other people, right? Because you spent a lot of time getting proficient, doing your own thing, and then you got into management. That's a whole other set of challenges, right?
Yes, it is.
People aren't quite as easy to mold as machines are, right?
No, they're not. And your success depends on your people, right? The people that you're leading, if they're not successful, that's a reflection on you, right? There is a whole new set of challenges there for sure.
Yeah. So what made you think that you were ready to take that on?
I think I was ready to lead by example. I just look at personally what got me to where I was at, what the next steps would be, as far as getting into a management position, is lead by example, right? Just based on my experience. I know I found this out. I found this to work. This works. This doesn't. Maybe we're going to go down this way, and here's the reasons why. And just to lead by example.
Yeah, do what you said you wanted to do.
Exactly.
Did you get trained sort of on the job management training? Like, how did you sort of figure out the right way to do that?
I was approached by the GM. This was when I was with Apex, about taking some management courses at Tunx's. And along with a couple other people. And so I think they knew, obviously, because I made it clear that I had intentions down the road. And they recognized that, so they put me through some management training.
I would love that. Using some of the local resources.
Yeah.
Those courses still exist if
Yes.
people want to leverage them.
They do.
Yeah, and it sounds like you felt they were really helpful.
Absolutely.
Giving you some foundation to go with. And then where'd the opportunity to get into sales come from?
So when I was still at Apex, by that time it was EDAC. This was probably around 06, 07. Manufacturing was kind of not doing well at that point. There was some initiatives to have supervisors work with the sales team to go out and shake the bushes. Use your contacts, go out and shake the bushes and find some work. There was layoffs, there was furloughs.
It's tough.
It was not a good time.
Yeah.
And so I did that, and turned out I was pretty good at it. And I liked it. And at that point, so I started wearing both hats. And at that point, I started thinking about a career move. And I was approached with an opportunity. Hey, with your technical background, you might have something here. Is this an avenue you might want to consider? And I did. And
Never looked back. It never looked back.
No, not at all.
And the challenge, the road keeps rising up to meet your desire to be a challenge in this role.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, never ending.
No, never ending. There's always something new.
So thinking about what's going on at Reno and your role and sort of going to market there, how do you guys think about in a crowded market space? How do you guys try and stand out? Like when you think about going to market, how do you guys think about that?
So really what we focus on is, what I focus on is our niche. What are we good at? What makes us stand out from our competitors? And again, what we talked about is the large format equipment that we have there. It kind of makes us stand out. And that's kind of what we focus on. We have kind of a reputation in the industry for that equipment, and people will kind of seek us out through the grapevine, through other, engineers and procurement people move, they bounce around and stuff, and they'll bring their black book.
And you're in the black book.
You're in the black book, and things just kind of open up.
So and I know you maybe haven't been there obviously for all of it, because you certainly weren't at Reno in 1957 or whatever when it started.
No, not quite.
But how did we go from sort of the brake lathe being used on an aerospace part to large format 5-axis? Like, was that a strategic decision? Like, do you know how I don't need every single move from there to there, but how did you guys get into this niche?
So, historically, what Reno was synonymous for decades was support equipment, ground support equipment, tooling, fixturing, same thing that most of the companies in the area do. The same things, weldments, holding, fixturing and holding for Pratt, Sikorsky. That's what they did for decades and still do. And then they started to diversify with larger equipment. They had the opportunity to take on 2 big 5-axis gantry machines from Sikorsky and offload the work that they were doing internally to those machines. And it worked out really well. They also acquired larger turning VTLs up to 144 inch. So same thing, now more companies have that capability, but back in the day, not so much. So they just expanded. They took their core business and just kind of fell into this niche. There was an opportunity there, and they went with it.
It's really interesting, right? Because you start off sort of saying, hey, we're in this ground support equipment, tooling and all that stuff. And as you rightly pointed out, there's a lot of other people in that space.
Absolutely.
Tough to stand out when there's a lot of people doing the same thing you're doing.
That's right.
So they were looking for maybe it fell into, but listen, potato, right?
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of times the most amazing things happen by accident, but sort of found something that people wanted that was different than what everybody else is doing.
Exactly.
And then went full steam ahead into it.
Yeah.
And sounds like that's really paid off. From someone in your position, you must really love being in a place where there aren't too many people doing what you're doing.
It's obviously it presents its challenges, but it's nice to be able to represent that because there's a lot of opportunity there when you go looking for it. Again, it falls into your lap, but we started with 2 pieces of equipment, and now our 5th is about to be installed. That'll be online in the next month or so, and that's it's completely booked through the next year already.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Before it's even installed.
Yep.
But there's a lot of people listening to that feeling a little jealous.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All about booking machine time.
It is. Yeah, it is. And we have a similar situation where we have two of those pieces of equipment are booked solidly through the end of this year, and we're working on extending that even farther.
So you said, you sort of talked about, hey, there's some upsides and some downsides to having like a defined niche. And so let's talk through that a little bit. What do you see as some of the great upsides through having this like specific niche? As you see it.
The upside is, there's not much competition in this part of the country for that type of work. You usually that's in the Midwest, in the Wichita area,
because that's where they're doing airframers.
Yeah, or obviously the West Coast supporting Boeing.
Yeah. And the nice part is, right, if anyone that needs work near here on large size items, shipping those is way more expensive than a small part. So that's distance really matters.
Yeah, especially when there's multiple operations, you're coming back and forth.
That's going to add costs in a hurry,
especially nowadays.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
So obviously there needs from this niche perspective, what you guys are doing, there needs to be enough work kind of in the local area, because you're not going to be able to farm it out, ship it in from the Midwest or from the West Coast.
Yeah.
And so there is enough work there for that.
There's absolutely enough work. We've aligned ourselves with a company that is doing fusion energy.
Yep.
They're pioneering fusion energy. They're an offshoot of MIT.
Fusion energy, like there's that big story a couple months back.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah. We're heavily involved with that, and we have been for the last 2 or 3 years, and it's ramping now.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. And
Well, this is a thread I didn't know we were going to go down, but I'm jumping all over it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Dish, what do you got?
Well, it's all development work, which is something that Reno's known for is development. We don't typically do high production volumes, but this is all development that's going to ramp to low rate. But the size of these, so these are magnets.
So let's back up and say, what are we trying to do? We're trying to develop what?
So this is fusion energy, and I'm not well versed at fusion.
Not many people are. Yeah,
but essentially, it's a big magnet.
Okay.
Right. That's powered with energy that produces more energy than it takes to power it.
Right. Yeah. So so this part I do know, which is that was the big story, was like the whole idea of fusion is that fusion creates a lot of energy, but it took forever for them to figure out. They've been working on this since the 50s or something. Exactly. It always took more energy to fuse the atoms together than you could get out of it. And fusion is actually what the sun uses to generate all of its power. But apparently they've developed this way, and it's using magnets. This is the part that neither of us fully understand. We'll have to get some type of MIT pro down here, but they developed some way of using this magnets and this whatever that you could actually get more energy out of the fusion than you put into it. And in theory, if you could make it work on its own, the fusion would be self-propelling, because if you use the fusion to power the fusion, it would be never ending, because you would always be creating more than you put in. So, I mean, in theory, if it works and you run it out to forever, you would be driving down the costs of power, and it's totally carbon free, I think.
Carbon free. There's no nuclear waste or anything like that.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
No byproduct.
No byproduct at all. So I mean, it's almost like it's almost unbelievable. But what they still haven't been able to do is do it at scale. And so this is where you guys come in.
So now it's starting to scale, and it's going to scale even bigger. So in these huge magnets are these plates, okay, and these plates are huge. They're 190 by 185.
Feet?
Inches.
Okay.
Inches. All right. These D-shaped plates that are magnets, okay, that have to have precision slots machined in them. So you need a big gantry machine to be able to do those.
And we know someone who has a large gantry machine.
And we've done this scaled. We've done these for tests so far on a smaller basis. But now they're starting to ramp this. And to do this, they don't even make material that's big enough. So you have to take plates and weld them together and then machine them. And they have to be flat and parallel. And it's just massive. It's a massive undertaking.
And this fits directly into the niche that you guys have. So if they're looking for somebody near MIT to get it done, they don't have anybody else to go to, really.
We're the closest. Yeah. I think they've got 4 or 5 other vendors across the country in Canada that they're using for this, because it's a huge project.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So it's sort of funny, going back to sort of the niche part of the conversation, when you have a very specific niche, you really stand out when someone needs that service done.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're not submitting your pricing request against like 50 other people that do what you do in roughly the same way.
Exactly. I mean, it's still competitively quote, and you gotta compete for that business. But having that type of equipment puts you, obviously you're well postured for growth, for success.
You mentioned that so we've got some upsides on. You stand out from the competition. It probably helps keep prices higher a little bit, right? Generally, less competition means a little bit higher prices, which means you can get a little bit more margin, which means you can invest more in the business. So
that's right. You can. I mean, you're of course you're on a very specialized, very expensive machine tool as well too. So that obviously is going to command a higher hourly rate than a 3-axis machining center for sure.
So what are some of the challenges that you face? There's some upsides of having sort of a really specific niche, but you mentioned there were some challenges. What do you see as some of those challenges?
Challenges are Well, right now our challenge is capacity because we're full.
Well, yeah, that's a great challenge to have. Yeah,
Challenge is capacity. Finding people, putting the right people in there, scaling your business to support that effort, getting the right people, getting them trained. It's a big piece of equipment, expensive piece of equipment. You have to have somebody that's really confident running that.
And because you're sort of in this niche where there's not a lot of people doing it, your pool of people that know what they're doing is much smaller.
Yep, you're training people from the ground up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it puts a lot of pressure sort of on that training.
Yeah. Yep.
So having been in both environments, sort of a niched environment and sort of a more mass environment, what have you seen works better and which one do you enjoy?
I like this. I like the niche environment. Again, you could there's a market obviously for tooling and ground support equipment.
There is. That's why a lot of people do it.
Exactly, yeah. and we'll keep going with that. But when you have equipment like this, big equipment, you got to think big, and there's different markets you can reach out to, and lots of opportunity. That's why I kind of prefer this.
Yeah. Do you have to spend, when you're in something so specific, do you spend more time thinking strategically about what markets you're going to go after and keeping an eye on the size of the market?
We do. We definitely monitor that. There's so much opportunity right now. You can kind of pick what avenues you want to focus on.
Really?
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely.
Oh, that's exciting.
It is. It's a good place to be right now. For a company our size, when you get larger, obviously your bandwidth is bigger.
Right.
And
more mouths to feed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So you had mentioned you're kind of doing some work at some of the big guys, right? You mentioned Sikorsky, I think, and Collins and sort of Raytheon, and you're seeing a lot of demand on the large equipment from those customers.
We are not so much on the Pratt side. That's really not what we do for them. We're doing more development and rig work on that side, but we're getting into some different areas with them as well. I've gotten into different business units that we typically haven't worked with in the past. And so I focus on growing those.
Beginning and growing those.
Yeah.
Tell you what, Dave, there's a lot of companies that have thought about how can they sort of stand out. And seems like at Reno, you guys have figured out how to do it by finding a niche that not a lot of people are in, but has a lot of value and really just driving that in the marketplace. And it seems like it's worked out for you guys.
Yeah, no, it really has. It's going well.
Well, a lot of people could learn from that, and hopefully they will from listening to the show. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'm going to flip us over to a rapid fire round of questions, and we'll wrap it up, man. You good? You ready?
Fire away.
All right, here we go. Red Sox or Yankees?
I'm not a stick and ball guy.
Not a stick and ball guy.
No,
fair enough.
I'm a motorsports guy.
Motorsports guy.
Sorry.
All right, fair enough. NASCAR or Formula One then?
None of that. MotoGP, Supercross, flat track.
Oh, there we
racing,
go.
that kind of stuff.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Starbucks or Dunkin'?
Dunkin'.
iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
I think I know the answer to this one, but I'll ask you anyway. Sports car or SUV?
SUV for now.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah.
Staycation or exotic destination?
Exotic. We like to travel.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. If you had to do something other than work at Reno Machine, but it could be anything in the whole wide world, what would you spend your time doing?
I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do when I grow up. But I'd have to say as something motorsports related, I would think.
Get into motocross or something like that?
Yeah, I don't know about that, but something. Maybe even in marketing.
Okay.
Or I'm not sure. It's a great question.
Oh, there you go. You got time to think about it.
I do.
Nice. What's something, Dave, that you learned early in your life or early in your career that you think's helped springboard you to all the success you've had?
I think it's up to you to make it happen. If you wait for opportunity to come, it might. You got to make it happen. You got to just get out there and do it.
Get out and do it.
Yeah,
I think,
just get out and do it.
I feel like there's a Nike just do it in there somewhere, right? What's something that you learned later in your career, later in your life, that if you went back and told young Dave and if he'd listened to you, it would have a real positive impact on his life?
Oh, man. I probably would have and should have gotten a degree. I never did that. I don't have a degree. I tried college. I was doing more at the time, just grinding it out. But if I had to do it, in now for the positions I'm in now and where I want to go, probably a degree would be
Going
something
back,
that
just put it into your plans.
Yeah,
Go at
exactly.
night, finish it up on the side, or whatever.
Yeah, I even considered doing that, but I don't know. Might be too late.
It's never too late, man. It's never too late. Dave, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and everything that's going on. I really, really appreciate the time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure.
Made in America with Ari Santiago is brought to you by Compass MSP.
Thanks for listening and spending some time with me today. My goal is to help build a strong manufacturing community, and it would be impossible to do without all of you.